Strap in and be prepared.
Maybe I'll learn from your failures.
That is what you could do.
Yeah.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, George Reiser, Ryan Lee, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I think Dan Lanning sitting in his office going, you know what, fine, give us the toughest road to win the national championship. That's what it should be.
Oregon State in their baseball program is still operating from a position of strength, even if they're independent. But here they are in the College World Series.
And some smiles.
It's iconic.
We're not keeping score, but maybe we're keeping score.
The fastest 60 minutes in sports is on the air. It's Danny Havel.
When I wake up every morning, I say to myself, what can I do to make Baby J's life better today?
Justin Grossweiner.
Have I ever told you, Danny, that growing up I really loved ducks?
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport.
Hello, neighbors, and welcome, broadcasting from Eugene and Newport from the Bigfoot Beverages Studio. High atop the Delta Triad, the Crystal Palace. This is the fastest 60 minutes in sports talk, and our new open on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. It's the Danny and Justin radio program. You can find us on Twitter and Blue Sky. Danny and Justin, you got to spell out the and, A-N-D, and also wherever you pod. So if you do Spotify, you do Podverse, you do True Fans, not OnlyFans. You're not going to find us on OnlyFans, just True Fans. Apple, Amazon, all of them. We're everywhere. It's the Danny and Justin radio program for a Tuesday, just breaking the seal off the week. The Beavers are still in the College World Series, and right now they are in the top of the seventh inning, down 5-3, I believe, to Louisville, an elimination game. So we'll be watching that as we traverse through the program. On the program today is Travis Demers, the voice of the Blazers. The mayor of Rip City will be joining us about 2:20. We'll talk about that. Lots of things to get to, but especially for our new listeners out on the coast in Newport, thanks for tuning in. Out by the sea and in the bay, I'm Danny Halville. Right over there is my tag team partner, Justin Grossreiner. We call him Baby J. What a boy!
Do you remember when you asked me yesterday if my mom ever calls me just randomly during the day to talk?
Yes.
So my mom called me yesterday randomly during the day to talk, and she said she had a really funny story. And so I guess it wasn't super random, but it was really funny, actually. So about a year and a half ago, I got a gift from my aunt or uncle just for my birthday or the holiday, something like that. And it was a gift that I had already received, and so I had the ability to return it essentially. And this was nothing was hidden here. They the right to return was given,
which means you returned it.
The problem was they gave me the same gift 2 years in a row, and I don't think they remembered.
So you returned it, is what you're saying.
So I returned it. That's basically what's going on.
And you got the cash.
Well, we'll talk about that. Because here's what happened. So,
all right, here we go.
During this process,
during this transaction,
what ended up happening was the gift was in Oregon. I ended up moving to Chicago for a couple months in it was 2023.
Okay.
And my mom actually was the one that returned this item. I think it was some headphones, some wireless headphones.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening is I got back from Chicago, and I go over to my counter, and there sitting on my counter are the wireless headphones. And so I have no idea what she returned. It could have been literally anything. I'm still trying to figure out to this day what she returned. And so, just kind of fast forward till yesterday, and what she ended up basically reimbursing me for the gift, and she ended up kind of taking care of it. But it was kind of an oopsie on her part.
It's like 2 years ago?
Yeah, basically. And so she gives me a call yesterday.
So I'll just stop right there, though.
Okay.
What triggered I need to now give you this money for the return gift?
She returned the wrong thing, and so she basically wanted to give me the money that I was going to be getting for that return, so I could get. I don't remember what I ended up getting, but I ended up getting something else that was like around that same price. That I don't remember. It was some electronic thing, I'm sure.
Okay.
Maybe it was like camera thing. But anyways, what's not important? Nobody was mad at me for returning the gift. It was definitely not a problem.
Yeah,
but basically,
we're past that.
The moral of the story is fast forward to yesterday, and she calls me and she says, "Hey, so I guess Amazon had this settlement, and they basically just refunded everyone for the returns. They had a return problem."
Did she double dip?
Our return problem was that my mom messed up and she gave the wrong thing. So basically, we totally got away with it.
You double dipped.
Absolutely.
Is what you say. You played the system.
She just got $160 for no reason.
Oh, dude. All right.
Maybe I just outed myself, but
so it
was pretty funny.
So the Beavs had runners on first and second with one away, and they left them stranded there in the 7th inning. So it's getting down to now 6 outs left for Oregon State. Still down by 2 in the elimination game against Louisville, 5-3, as they head to the bottom of the 7th. There in Omaha. So this is a winner-go-home game for Oregon State. Omaha! That's right. And it's kind of prophetic, but not. What's interesting is the top of the lineup for Oregon State has not produced. Trent Carraway, Gavin Turley with just 2 hits combined. Tice Peterson, Jacob Craig have 2 hits. Just 4 hits total for Oregon State. Let me refresh, make sure that's still accurate. Actually, now it's, Trent Carraway, Ivar Arquette also has a hit now. Wilson Weber also has a hit. So they scattered them out between 6 players, 6 hits for Oregon State. So they're getting down to dire circumstances there in Omaha.
Well, and like you said, it's been the hitting.
Well, it has. I mean, the pitching's been fine. So Nelson Keljo started the game, went 3 innings. 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. A.J. Hutchinson has come in. He's picked up the last 3 innings. Let's see who they run out there here in the 7th inning for Oregon. I would imagine we might see Segura in this situation, try and close out the game to keep it close. I mean, Oregon State has been hitting the ball, but they've just been scattering the hits. They haven't been able to string them together.
Right. Nobody has more than 1 hit.
Right. Louisville with 1 run in the first, 2 runs in the third, 1 in the fourth, 1 in the 6th. Oregon State with 2 in the fourth, 1 in the 6th. And again, they're down 5-3.
Still, I think they're in striking distance. It's
absolutely.
It's still a bloop and a blast. At this point now, you're looking at 6 outs. So it's not the best position to be in, obviously, but we've seen them be in this position before, and they've won. So I'm not ready to sit here and call it over yet.
We talked about this yesterday. It almost seems like with Oregon State this season, you get their backs up against the wall, and that's when they produce.
Right.
So I'm absolutely not counting them out yet.
Every team has these situations where you're going to be you need 2 runs with 6 outs to go, and the best teams are able to do it. This is the type of stuff, the type of situation that a championship team is able to overcome. So whether they're not, they are that, I think they're given an opportunity right now to prove that, and that's what you can ask for, right?
Right. So Murray State has been eliminated.
Unfortunately.
They lost on a no-hitter. In fact, 1 hit by batter away from a perfect game.
Never been a perfect game, I don't think.
So that, again, if we had a production meeting, if you were so mired in...
Okay. Beforehand, I don't think either of them were perfect games.
I don't think... Yeah, you're right. And then UCLA, in a game that was continued from last night because of the rainout, they concluded that game starting in the middle of the 4th inning this morning, and LSU ended up defeating UCLA 9-5, so UCLA is out. So the game tonight after Louisville, Oregon State is UCLA, Arkansas. It's Coastal Carolina taking on, I believe, the winner of the Louisville, Oregon State game, and then LSU taking on the winner of UCLA, Arkansas. So that will be tomorrow. So now it's the gauntlet for those teams that are fighting their way through the consolation bracket. So now you got to start playing back-to-back games. And again, we'll be watching it as we go throughout the program. So Travis Demers, we have a lot to talk about. So it was game 5 in the NBA series, in the NBA championships, and Oklahoma City outlasts Indiana. Pardon me. I don't know what that was. Holy smokes! What was that?
That was loud.
That was not a burp. That was that was acid reflux. I'm sorry about that. Oh my gosh! Well, we need to put that. You absolutely need to put that on the open. Mark that on the old loop there.
Well, I think the big story was Tyrese Haliburton. He had a really off game, and it was partially because of his calf
injury. Yeah. So we're going to talk to Travis Demers about that, the mayor. But 120-109. So I think it's like now in the NBA championships, the team that wins Game 5, 74% chance of winning the entire series. So it's wildly now shifted towards OKC having the opportunity to win this whole thing.
I think you and I were aligned the same way, which was that Game 4. And if the Thunder lost Game 4,
they were done.
I don't know if they were done.
They were
I just thought that the Pacers had a really good shot. I wasn't sitting there and saying, well, Pacers up 3-1, they're going to win the championship. But I really thought they had to be up 3-1 to possibly win the championship. So they did have a moment in this game near the end. I think it was when it was like 106, 110 or something like that maybe. They brought it to within 5, and then OKC just went on this crazy run, and they just showed why they're the team they are. And it was Jalen Williams, who had a freaking awesome game and scored 40 points, which
Did you say freaking?
Yeah, am I allowed to say that? I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that. Anyways, so...
And by the way, you can tell the Lavender story if you want today. But
I can
say
tell
freaking.
it.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Anyways, so I think that it was just a sort of christening for the Thunder, if that makes sense. They had a performance that you kind of expected them to, a dominant sort of Game 5.
Agreed.
Now they're in control performance.
So, I mean, now if you're Indiana, you don't have Haliburton. So are you going to be able to rely on Pascal to carry you the rest of the way home?
I think Haliburton's kind of going to play.
Yeah, but I mean, you got a strained calf. You're not going to be 100%. You're going to grit through this. I understand all of that, but if you're not at 100% at this high level, and if I'm OKC, I'm going after him every single time defensively.
No,
every single time defensively. Hopefully he's going to reach and stuff. By the way, Eric Segura is coming in for the Beavers to relieve here in the 7th inning for Oregon State against Louisville in the College World Series. But yeah, Game 5, definitely. Oklahoma City had a chokehold on it. They were up
15.
Well, they were up by 10 after 1, then they increased it like 12, 14. They just kind of kept Indiana at an arm's length the entire game. You never felt that Indiana was going to go on a big run.
Just getting back to your question, so what they're going to need to do going forward, is it going to be Pascal Siakam? It's going to have to be like a guy like Pascal Siakam.
He's got to step up.
No, absolutely, and I think that Benedict Matherin's going to have a big game. Nembhard, it's going to have to be all the guys.
Yeah.
I think the problem is it seems like for the Pacers that Tyrese Haliburton is one of those guys where he's kind of the engine, right? And everything goes.
It'd be like taking Dame out of Portland.
Yeah, and he's not quite the scorer that Dame is, where you can just
15
say,
points,
hey, Dame, get 50 points for us.
Yeah, 15 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 6.5 rebounds.
Is that what he's averaging in the series?
Yeah. In the first 5 games, 45% shooting.
And on the year, he's averaging about 19 and 10. So he's a pure point guard. He's not necessarily like a go-to scorer, but that's kind of the thing, is he's your go-to facilitator and the guy that kind of makes everything happen. And the end of the games, obviously, he has that killer instinct where he can make things happen with scoring the basketball. So it's a tough, there's no other way to put it. It's a tough blow for the Pacers, who kind of needed everything to break their way in this series, in my opinion, to have it go their way. And it seems like they're having now a few things that haven't broke their way, and I don't see them winning the series.
So what's interesting as we look back on this as well in this entire series is that, can I say there hasn't been a ton of close games? There hasn't been.
I'd have to look through it, but
I don't think there has been. It's been at least a 10-point spread.
Close.
Okay, game 1 was. But after that, it's been like a 10-point spread for every game.
That's how these games are, where it just one team kind of figures something out and takes a little bit of control.
But in the NFL, that's like somebody winning by 2 touchdowns.
10 points?
In the NBA, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Think so?
Yes,
think about it. I mean, it's so different in the NFL, because 2 touchdowns in the NFL, it's all about possessions, and being down 2 possessions in football is a lot. But being down, I guess that's 5 possessions in basketball.
So that's what I'm saying. I think I would equate that to that.
It's so different, though, because a run can happen in basketball so quickly, where you can get a steal or whatever it is. So I think it's a little different. I get what you're saying, though. I'd maybe equate it to like 15. I think if you lose him by 15 points, then it's
then that's
squarely,
2 touchdowns.
Well, I think 2 touchdowns is like you were never really that close, or it didn't end up that close. I think 10 points it could have really gone either way. There's some 10-point games that were 2-point games the entire way, and all of a sudden it's 10 points at the end. And there's some 25-point games that were the other way around, right? So it just. I don't know. I think their sports are different. I think it's different, Danny.
Broadcasting live from Eugene and Newport from the Bigfoot Beverages studio. It's the Danny Justin radio program. We call it The Fastest. Thanks for tuning in and lending us your ears. We'll have the mayor of Rip City joining us, Travis Demers. We'll be interested to hear about his take on the NBA Finals, his take on Tyrese Halliburton, and as well. So after the first 8 picks in the NBA draft, it seems like there's not a lot of interest in what's going to go on in the NBA draft.
Well, I don't think there's a lot of consensus, I would say, about who
that's
the
a different way of saying it. But to me, it's just
I wouldn't say there's no interest, because there's certainly guys that are interesting. Derek Queen, there's Jace Richardson. These guys are going to be outside of the top 8. Danny Wolf, who's from Glencoe, by the way.
Yes, okay. But there's going to be a lot of situational, just like in football. It's about what you need and not necessarily
taking... you're not a smart team.
Well, but there's also that thought process, and we're going to talk to the mayor about this, is do you just take the best player?
Yes.
Like in Portland.
Always.
Okay, so you have 4 really good guards, and you're going to take another guard if you're the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay, let me put a little caveat on it.
Okay. Okay.
So
it's not necessarily the best player.
But it also kind of depends. Is there a player that's very comparable, that's very similar,
does something different though,
but does something different that fits you a little better? That's for sure. And because you got to think about the development part of it. Sometimes when you look back at these drafts, I think guys can be just as talented, but then they go to a different spot.
But Justin, you're talking about situations. Then
I
am.
I think that if you are sitting there and there's one guy that's way higher on your board and you think is way more talented than everyone else, but he plays the same position as your best guy, I think you still have to take him, because at that point, you're just taking a way worse player with value that I think ultimately would be less.
But
I think ultimately you're getting less out of it.
You can't carry 6 guards on an NBA roster.
You can't. No, you can't. But the Blazers, who I think we're kind of talking about here,
we are. That's who we're centered on.
I think that what Travis Demers is going to say is that they basically have.
I'm writing this down right now.
I think it's exactly what he's going to say.
Okay.
Is that basically what they have right now is the core of their future starting lineup, and anybody that they're going to draft can potentially be their 6th guy off the bench or a key contributor off the bench,
with nobody getting traded somewhere else.
No, there definitely are going to be moves. Okay. I think that this is a Blazers team that hasn't done a lot of trades. They did the Dame trade, obviously, but they didn't do a lot last season, obviously, in terms of moves. But I think that this offseason, they will shake things up a little bit, because I think that they're Jeremy Grant, I don't think, is making it through the offseason.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think Robert Williams III is going to make it through.
Probably not.
So, but that's what you're making my point for me, is that you're not going to draft a guard if they are the best available player without saying, I'm going to move somebody else that's currently on my roster.
Right. I don't think
you're not going to stand pat and say, okay, I'm going to draft and add. You're going to add and then subtract to make an addition.
Look no further than the Thunder, who have basically done this for the last 5 or 10 years, where they've just stockpiled picks, and they've moved on from guys and drafted guys. And hey, now they're in the finals, and they have a bunch of guys that are on cheap contracts, and they've made specific moves, like the move for Caruso, where they took a guy that they drafted, Josh Giddey, whose value had declined a little bit because he wasn't even playing for them in the playoffs because of his defense as much as anything last year. And so OKC said, hey, we're going to go to Chicago and get a guy that is a very good defender, more of like a role player, and he's been what you would call a star in his role. And so at that point, you're a real team, right? And so I think that's where the Blazers kind of are in the beginning stages of that, where they sort of need to keep on churning this young talent in there. And if there's somebody that basically you have to pay and you don't think that they're going to be a star, you kind of have to let them go. I think maybe a guy like Anthony Simons is like that, where I don't think Anthony Simons is going to save a franchise anytime soon. So why wouldn't you try to get the most you can out of for them, especially after this Desmond Bane trade, which was 4 first-round picks and a pick swap?
So Shaedon Sharpe or Anthony Simons, who moves first off the Blazers?
Oh, Anthony Simons, like 100 times out of 100.
There you go.
Not even close.
So you answered my question for me as well, because I think if they draft guard, I think Anthony Simons is absolutely dangled as trade
100%.
bait to somebody.
100%.
And get a 4 or a 5. Because then you need to bolster that position. You absolutely have to, because Ayton's on his last year of his contract. Well, I mean, again, we're not very smart. We're going to talk to the guy who's much smarter about this.
No, you're not wrong, though. They need some more interesting front court pieces. That's what the NBA has turned into. You have these teams that you just look at their front courts.
You can bulk up in the 2s and the 3s. You can.
A lot of guards. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, I think guards are more easy to come by, and scoring in, like, short bursts is more easy to come by. You want these really interesting forwards and guards. It's funny how the NBA sort of turned into this positionless thing, but ultimately it all is down to the size and the length.
But I'm also looking at contracts.
100%.
And the way you move the money around. And this is an interesting point and an interesting period of time for the Blazers because there's going to be new ownership. Within the next 18 months as well. So how much are they going to want to invest in new talent and how they want to take the direction of the franchise?
Well, how much are you going to want to try to stay? I don't know if status quo is the right idea, but not do anything super crazy before you have new ownership.
Yeah, you can't go status quo anymore if you're Portland. All right, when we come back, it's the mayor of Rip City, Travis Demers, joins us. We'll talk about Father's Day, we'll talk about honeycomb cereal, and we'll talk about the future of the Blazers next on the Danny and Justin radio program, live from the Bigfoot Beverages studio, broadcasting in Eugene and Newport. Oregon State down to their last 3 outs as they strike out at the plate with a runner on first. In the top of the 8th, they still have to get through the bottom of the 8th with Louisville at the plate. Up 5-3 at the College World Series, and the obligatory shot of the mom of the pitcher from Louisville after she struck out Oregon State's batter at the plate.
And for our audience, that was all from memory. Danny had his eyes closed the entire time when he was recounting that. Also, Danny, by the way,
yes,
you are not a positive late game guy, I don't think, sometimes.
I don't know about that. I actually,
you think you are?
Well, I think overall, I am an overly optimistic person.
That's good though.
It is versus you. I don't think you're an overly.
No, I feel like I'm a realist. That's what I try to. That's what I try to be. At least.
Well, let's see if we can break the tie here. Let's bring in the mayor of Rip City on the Oregon Man Clinic's hotline at 541-343-5673. It's the voice of the Blazers, Travis Demers, joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis Demers as he joins us here on a Tuesday on the Danny and Justin radio program, live in Eugene and Newport now at 92.7 KNCU. So, Travis, are you optimistic or are you realistic?
I think it really depends on the situation, right? So you look at the Oregon State-Florida State game 1 of that. They're down to their last out. I'm like, well, they're toast. And I might have, when they tied the game in the bottom of the ninth, I might have yelled some expletives at the TV because I was so surprised. So, yeah.
That's why we love sports, though.
Yeah, I think I'm not optimistic in those situations. I'm realistic.
Okay.
There you go.
And you like to be pleasantly surprised, right?
Exactly.
Expect the worst, hope for the best.
So is that okay? All right. Well, I guess that's not taking the right side for me, but that's okay. So how was your Father's Day, buddy?
It was great. I had my kids, and they woke me up, and they said, don't get out of bed because we're going to make you breakfast.
I saw this picture. Come on, awesome. Tell everybody what they brought you.
Oh, man. So they brought me like this kid's protein shake, a Kraft single, a little applesauce pouch, a bag of popcorn. What else was in there? Oh, a Paw Patrol yogurt, all kinds of stuff.
Dad, you're going to get powered up for the day to chase us around all day long. Attaboy. Great.
Lots of carbs and sugar, baby.
Travis Demers joining us, the voice of the Blazers. We call him Mayor of Rip City on the Danny and Justin radio program. So, all right. So let's start with the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton goes down with they said, first ankle injury, and now it's a calf injury. He's going to be limited in Game 6. Rick Carlisle finally gets a little irritated with the officials. He picks up a tee. Game 6 Thursday night in Indianapolis, but now the Pacers are down 3-2 after the 120-109 loss to Oklahoma City. So is this what we expected now? Is finally, because there was a little consternation early on that, oh, wow, Indiana's going to come out and, kind of slug away with Oklahoma City. But now, is it what we thought it would be? Is that the better team is going to rise above this?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. And before the series, we talked about it, that, turnovers were going to be a big part of the series. And in game one, up until the last, 5 minutes, that was what was determining the game. And it's interesting because in game 5, Halliburton did nothing, right? He was hurt. He was banged up. He didn't have a field goal until late in that game. But yet it was a close game. And that's fine for a little while, but they can't sustain that. They can't win a game that way. So I think, if Halliburton doesn't play or if he's limited and you're relying on T.J. McConnell, think about that again. T.J. McConnell, you're probably not winning an NBA Finals game against a team that historically, had a historical point differential this year. I think the series is over. I'd like to see it go 7 games just because 7-game series are always fun. But I think there's a very good chance that Oklahoma City comes out and just rolls right past Indiana in Game 6.
So you don't think Pascal Siakam can just blow up for 42 points and carry them to a win at home?
I think it's possible, sure. But now that you don't have Halliburton, or that you don't have to key on him as much,
you can
put a little more of your defensive energy onto Siakam. Yeah, it can happen, sure. I just don't see it happening.
I think this finals is much more interesting because of the Pacers in a lot of ways than it is for the Thunder. We kind of know how good the Thunder are already, and they've been building this thing for a long time. But I think it's interesting trying to quantify what the Pacers are doing, because how do we think about Tyrese Halliburton now that he's had all these clutch shots and now they're in the finals and they won a couple games and it looked like they may go up 3-1 at one point. But now we are here and it looks like they're maybe going to lose. But what the Pacers have done, so this is kind of a two-part question. How do you quantify what this team has done? Is this sort of a flash in the pan, or are they going to we have to look for in the East for a long time? And is this a sort of dangerous thing for other teams to look at the Pacers and try to do what they've done?
Well, it's a two-part question, right? Is this a flash in the pan for Indiana? Well, last year they got to the in-season tournament championship game, and people thought, okay, well, it's early in the season. They're not going to be able to sustain that. Well, then they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Well, that's just a one-year thing. Then they get to the Eastern Conference Finals again. Hell, they're not going to get past the Knicks. And they did. They get to the finals. Hell, they're going to get swept, or maybe, it's a 5-game series. Well, they're up 2-1 with an opportunity to go up 3-1 if they could have held on. So every time that they're being counted out, they figure out a way to keep it going. So I don't think it's a flash in the pan, and I don't think it's been a flash in the pan. You look at the Eastern Conference as a whole, the Celtics next year without Jason Tatum for how long, who knows what they're going to look like. Are they going to make trades? Are they going to get better? Are they going to reset a little bit? We kind of know what the Knicks are unless they make any deals. Cleveland, same thing. And I don't think there's anybody else in the Eastern Conference unless there's a big trade that swings things. So I think you can put the Pacers up there with anybody else in the Eastern Conference next year. So no, I don't think it's a flash in the pan. And I forgot the second part of your question.
So the roadmap. Are people now going to try and maybe duplicate how the Pacers built this team? Yeah.
I think the NBA is the most difficult sport to try and duplicate things in, right? Because there's only 5 players on the floor, and it's so individualized, right? In the NFL, you can build a team around a really solid defense and a great running game with a quarterback that's not, a big-time passer, right? You can do those things. You can have that kind of copycat situation. In the NBA, you can't, because it's so star-driven. In today's NBA, the way that you have to stay within the parameters of the collective bargaining agreement, the salary cap, and the luxury tax, and all of those things, they made a couple of great trades, right? They traded for Halliburton, which at the time everybody thought was nuts, and then they traded for Siakam. And they've been getting great performances from their role players. Neesmith has been fantastic. Mathurin, when they've let him play, has been fantastic. T.J. McConnell has been very good in this series. Miles Turner, who's been there forever, has been up and down, but he's done something every game that has put them in a position. So when you look at other teams, like what's the blueprint? Trade for your two best players? That doesn't really work.
Right.
Last year I heard a lot of, the Blazers should follow the Thunder's path. Okay, trade for $8 billion draft picks and then get a guy after his rookie year who you didn't know was going to be an MVP that turns into an MVP? You just can't duplicate it. You can't duplicate what Denver did because you can't expect the guy who was drafted in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial to be an MVP,
Great
a multiple-time MVP. I heard the Rockets example. Okay, draft well and then add a couple of veterans. Well, it didn't work last year. This year they're the number 2 seed, but the way that team is built, they're not a team that can win in the postseason. So there are things you can do, like maybe pace of play, but during the regular season, the Pacers had a really fast pace of play. They scored a boatload of points, but couldn't defend. And they put themselves in a tougher situation in the playoffs as a 4 seed than if they were, a 2 seed. So I don't really like the idea in the NBA of trying to do what other teams have done, because one injury or one guy breaking out can change everything one way or the other.
Travis Demers, the mayor of Rip City, joining us on the Danny and Justin radio program, broadcasting from Eugene and Newport from the Bigfoot Beverages studio here on a Tuesday, Fox Sports. So, Travis, we're going to move off of the NBA Finals in just a second and then move into the Blazers here, because there's a lot of things that are going to be shifted, especially with ownership change and with the draft coming up. But is there going to be, and I hope there isn't, but is there going to be some second guessing of Rick Carlisle in Game 4 in any decision that he made down the stretch where Indiana let that game slip away, where they could have had a 3-1 advantage?
I think there's second guessing of everyone, everywhere, every time.
Would it be fair?
Right?
Would it be fair, though?
Well, I guess it depends just on how nitpicky you get. Sure. I mean, you could. There's always rotation things, isolation, how you're going to move the ball. But the truth is that none of that happens if Oklahoma City doesn't force turnovers and capitalize off their turnovers and have great players. I mean, really, in those situations, yes, coaching absolutely matters, but the players have to have some culpability there. And I don't think there was a whole lot different that Rick Carlisle could have done that would have changed the outcome of the game. In those coaching situations, like, for example, the Knicks against Indiana fouling with 13 seconds left on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
That's coaching. Right,
Mm-hmm.
that's a coaching decision. But a lot of the things that happened with the Pacers in Game 4, I don't think were. I think they were just execution, and to me, that's not on the coach.
So, Travis, as we move and shift over to the Blazers, Justin and I were debating in the first segment about draft positioning and who you take. So, first, I want to start with ownership, and it's a unique time in the history of the Blazers, because we haven't had it for a long while, where there is going to be a change in ownership. Now, we don't know who that is. We don't know when it's going to be finalized. So how do the Blazers approach the draft not knowing what direction ownership wants them to take? Is that put them in a position of, hey, we could do whatever we want? Are they going to be handcuffed? Do you have any insight?
So I don't have any insight or knowledge on what they're going to do.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that, Jody Allen and Burt Cole didn't just wake up one day and say, now's the time, right? This is something that they knew were coming. For how long, I don't know. Is it something that, they were waiting till the Celtics sale went through? I don't know. But it was inevitable. And it was something that you knew was going to happen. And in this time, I don't believe that Joe Cronin or anyone in the front office knew when it was going to happen. And this whole time, they've been operating as if, nothing was going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly before the team announced they were going to sell, they extended Joe Cronin, they extended Chauncey Billups. And they're, on this path together. And to me, you don't do that if you want them to change what they're doing. So it only makes sense to say to them, you've been doing this, you've been doing that, this is your plan, keep going.
Okay.
And then if new ownership comes in and wants something different, like Phoenix, which has become a total disaster, then you approach it then. But I think in the meantime, until now, you've given Chauncey and Joe the opportunity to do something. Let them see it through. Otherwise, what's the point?
We had our first big trade of the 2026 season, which I think is a little bit hilarious because the finals haven't finished yet, so it's still the 2025 season. But for the 2025-26 season, we obviously saw our first big trade with Desmond Bane going to the Magic for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, and 4 unprotected first-round picks and a pick swap. Do you think that trade changes a little bit of the scenery for the Blazers maybe in what they're trying to do? Because I think that is a very, very high bar to set for a player like Desmond Bane, who I think is maybe the 30-something best player in the NBA.
Yeah, you say high bar, I say dumb. I mean, really? You're going to give up 4 unprotected picks and a swap for Desmond Bane? Like, I like Desmond Bane.
Me too.
I like his
nice player,
arm.
but that's it.
Yeah,
nice player.
Is.
Yeah.
He's a really good defender. He's a phenomenal shooter. He can do a lot of different things. He's been an all-star. He's making a lot of money. That guy is not the difference of Orlando winning the championship or not. So you're going to take all of your eggs and put them in the Desmond Bane basket when you still have work to do and now there are no eggs left. Like, how are you going to make that team better now? I don't understand it. 2 first-round picks, okay, that I can see that. Cole Anthony probably wasn't going to be back anyway. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is mostly just filler. But Cole Anthony is a good backup point guard. You could have gotten something for him. But to give up 4 first-round picks, it doesn't make any sense. So when I look at other possible deals, free agency is not going to be big this summer. It's going to be about trades, and there aren't a lot of teams that have a lot of assets. So if it's somebody that wants to trade for Anthony Simons or Kevin Durant or whoever it might be, there just aren't a lot of teams that have that kind of capital. Mm-hmm. So I don't think this is going to have this major domino effect on the price tag for trades this summer. I think that's going to be kind of an outlier, and I think the Magic rushed it a little bit, even though they traded 2 picks for this year. They just saw desperation because they needed offense, and I think the Grizzlies took advantage of them.
The Danny Justin radio program here from Eugene and Newport, broadcasting from the Bigfoot Beverages studio on a Tuesday. We've got the mayor of Rip City, Travis Demers, joining us here. And by the way, you follow him on Twitter, you're going to see a great picture of him and his dad. So I know where he got his good looks from, and it was from his mom. So they're out there, and especially wearing the Yankees jerseys. Was that taken at Yankee Stadium, I would imagine, right? That's where it was?
Yeah, that was last summer, Yankee Stadium. I went back there to visit my folks.
Good-looking man.
My dad's birthday. My dad turned 78. I went out there, and it was the first time my dad and I had gone to a game at Yankee Stadium together since like 2009.
Awesome.
It was really cool to get out there.
So, Travis, as we start to turn our attention towards the draft for the Blazers, there's the mindset. And, is it a good draft? Is it a fair draft? Is it a great draft as you get down to 10, 11, 12, 15? And that's where the Blazers sit right now at 11, a nice pick, but, they could have been better. So the question always is going to be, do you go out and get the best player available, no matter and regardless of what you have on your roster? Or are you looking for a fit? And so I guess for you it would be this way, being a two-parter, is what do you hope the Blazers do versus what do you think the Blazers do?
I hope Cooper Flagg is still there at 11. That'd be cool.
All right, move off of that. Let's move to the next.
Okay. I think best available is what makes sense, right? Because you're not in a position where, okay, if I add this guy who plays this position that's a role player, that's going to put us into the next tier. They're not there. They've got to, put together the best players they possibly can, and then if there's redundancy, make some trades. So I would go for best player. I think they're going to go for best player.
Probably going to be a guard,
position.
though. It's going to be. You want 5 guards or 6 guards on your roster?
But it's not going to end up that way. So
okay.
I was trying
right
to tell
now,
him.
who are the guards, right? Assuming that in the big picture that it's, Scoot and Shaden, right? Those are the guys that you're building around.
Right, okay.
Then you have Anthony. You have, Seibel could play guard.
Right.
But who are these other guards that you're talking about?
Well, okay, 5. I said 5. Sorry, I shouldn't have said 6. You're right. It's 5. So Anthony's going to be the trade bait if you draft a guard, right?
100%.
Okay.
But the question is, though, is that this guard that you're drafting, do you envision them to be a starter? Do you think this guard that you're drafting is better than what you already have? And that's something that has to play out, because if Anthony is the one who becomes expendable, maybe he's not the only one that becomes expendable, right? You're putting together the best team that you can. So if you draft a center that you think is better than Donovan Clingan, and I'm not saying they're going to do that, well, now you have a bunch of centers. You got to move somebody. Right now they have 2 open roster spots, and that is if Delano Banton and Jabari Walker are not back next year. Okay, so they have 2 open roster spots. You draft somebody, you have 1 open roster spot. If you make an unbalanced trade, now you either have more or less roster spots. If you trade Anthony Simons for 3 guys, now you have to waive somebody. And I don't think they're going to put themselves in a position where they have to have dead cap space like that and waive somebody. So I think you're going to see a number of trades. And I think that core young nucleus of Scoot, Shaden, Kamara, Denny, and Donovan Clingan, I think that's the 5 guys that you're building around, and everything else can be moved. And, one of those guys, if whoever you're drafting is a starter, one of those guys is going to have to come off the bench, or this guy is going to have to come off the bench. So wherever you are, somebody that's a part of your future is coming off the bench. You go with the best player available.
And that's why we bring you in here, Mayor, because you're including me saying we had, possibly with a draft we'd have 6 guards on the Blazers lineup. So I'm an idiot, and so thank you for clearing that up for everybody. I wouldn't call it that I'm smart. I would call it that I don't have a life, and I just remember a lot of stuff. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you. Go take care of Lincoln and Lawson when you see them next, which is in a day or 2. So and keep working on the golf game.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you, buddy. There he goes, the great mayor of Rip City. It's Travis Demers. Follow him on Travis Demers on Twitter. When Justin and I come back, we put a bow on our time together for about a week. I'm on sabbatical. I won't
Island
be back.
time. Just kidding.
No, I was hoping he was going to be, but no. I will be in Cleveland, Michigan, and Texas.
Not quite the islands.
No. When we come back, we'll put a wrap on the program. Danny and Justin. Fox Sports, Eugene and Newport. The Oregon Man Clinic's hotline at 541-343-5673. You can dial us up anywhere in the valley and on the coast. In Newport, thanks for tuning in. Ken and Barbie. What was I going to say there? KNCU 92.7. You realize that 92.7 was the frequency that I had in the first all-sports station, FM-wise, in the state of Kansas.
Of course I knew that. How could I not know that?
Because I've only said it to you, a million times? I haven't said it that much.
You didn't say the frequency.
Okay. But it was 92.7. It was the Fan. It used to be used to be the Zoo. It was a hard rock station.
Oh.
And then we flipped it to sports, and oh my goodness, did we get phone calls from people that were not happy.
Well, at least you got calls.
Yeah, we certainly did. And then we converted most of them into sports fans.
By the way, the Beavers have the tying run on first base now.
All right, so
talking about being realistic and being optimistic, and I'm sitting here saying, hey, I think that there's still a chance that I'm being optimistic all of a sudden.
I'm throwing something at you right now across from the studio.
Oh, wow. That was he did a Jameis.
Really
he did a Jameis.
There, I hit your microphone. That's
very
nice. That's effective. Oregon State, 1 9th inning comeback this season, which was in the Super Regional game, which was game 1 against Florida State. They won
about
4-3, right?
Game that Travis talked about.
Absolutely. So right now, and squaring to bunt at the plate is Iva Arquette. So
I think Arquette led off the inning with the home run. So that looks like.
All right. Well, we'll get it straight. So here's the bottom line: is the Beavers are fighting for their lives right now. It is in the top of the ninth. They're last at bats, and there's 2 on, nobody out, and they're down by 2. So,
and unfortunately, we have the closed captioning on, and so we can't see the scoreboard.
Here, I'll give you this, and you can do that.
1-1.
Okay. So, as the Beavers try and fight their way through, so they lose the series, and the season for the Beavers is over. If they win, the winner of this game takes on Coastal Carolina at 11 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow. So you can tune into this radio program if the Beavers make it, and we'll see what the final is. If after this program is over with, you want to switch on over to our good buddies on KKNX, you can listen to Mike Parker on the call, which we hope it goes into at least extra innings. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. So as we head into the last few days of this week, I will be gone starting tomorrow. I will be actually on a plane tonight to Cleveland. I'm taking the red eye. I go from here to Seattle to Atlanta to Cleveland, and I will arrive there tomorrow morning at 9:11.
Sounds like an NFL career.
Not looking. You've done this when you go up to Alaska and stuff. You take the late night flights.
I have done this, yes.
So are you able to sleep on a plane? Because I have to wrestle with this because, okay, so here's my problem, is that I tend, if I'm overtired, I will snore. And I am always self-conscious of falling asleep on a plane and snoring.
So how loud are we talking?
Oh, talk to my wife. Okay. There's some nights where I'm a freaking buzzsaw,
I've heard some
dude.
stories about people that snore that it's like you can't be near them when they sleep. So I kind of get it. Is it that
can get
bad?
there. It can get that way.
Okay.
Absolutely. If I'm overtired. But
have you ever tried to do anything about it?
I have CPAP. I do the CPAP thing, but I don't have like the nose plug thing or the breathe right. My wife uses a breathe right strip, and it seems to work pretty well. But it's just on a plane.
You're too good for that. No, I'm just kidding.
It wouldn't be effective.
Yeah. No, and it's hard to sleep on planes. It's not
but
easy
you're more
in
upright.
the first place. That's the thing. I put my head onto my tray table. And like
you're
my
one of those guys.
Yeah, but it does not feel good on my back
Are
after
you
a while.
aisle or window guy?
Window, 100%.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were the window when we flew up to Seattle.
Window always.
I'm always an aisle guy.
And you want to be able to get in and out. I understand
don't want to bother anybody else if I need to get up.
I'm willing to do that, but also I don't want to, but I am willing to do it if I can sit on the window and don't have to be bothered. It's the other way around, right? Because if you are in the window, then you don't have to be moving if someone else wants to go to the bathroom.
Absolutely. You can just sack out, which there's the debate. I was thinking about that, just getting the window, but I've opted for the aisle, so now I'm committed. So I'm going to have to do the neck pillow thing.
My biggest airplane tip is do not watch Marley and Me on an airplane.
Because you start weeping?
Yes.
I'm not watching. There's no movie I like to watch when a dog dies, ever.
Yeah, no, huge mistake.
You did
mistake.
that. So obviously this is from experience.
Yes.
No way.
It was really bad.
All right, by the way, bases loaded now for the Beavs. 6-4, top of the ninth, 2-1 count. And ground ball, this is going to be trouble. It's through. The Beavers score one. They tie it up. The Beavers have tied it up with a chance to take the lead still. There is hope and joy in Mudville.
Realism wins out.
Outweighs pessimism.
Let's go.
Here on the Danny and Justin radio program.
Oh, a joke!
I got fired from the bank today. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her.
Dad jokes!
Why do kangaroo moms hate rainy weather?
Oh, I don't know.
You can get this. Their Joeys have to play inside.
Oh, well.
Think about it.
Yeah, because
the pouches.
Yeah. That was a Bill Buckner.
That was a little. That was a little bit.
It wasn't quite
the base runner getting in front of the ball is a great base running.
Great base running move. Absolutely.
So it's 6-6 now. Runners on second and third. So switch on. Well, Woody's going to kill me. If you want to listen to Mike Parker's call, you can find it somewhere. Otherwise, Have a great time while I'm gone. I'm gonna call tomorrow. I'll call from Cleveland as we're driving to Michigan. Is that okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Can I invade the program for the first segment? So we'll do the first segment via phone.
Perfect.
And then the rest of it's on you.
All right.
And
sounds
then
good.
It's Mims. Goose is going to be in Thursday, Friday, and then next week as well. I'll be back next Wednesday.
We're looking forward to that.
I'm sure you will. Justin gets a little break from me, and so do you. God bless, be well, put a smile on your face. Someone else says they deserve it. So do you. For Baby J, Justin Grosswire, I'm Danny Howell. Peace.